All right, in this episode, we talk about squatting and torsion for the pitcher.
And what's the better approach? Tall and fall, drop and drive, or 3X?
All right, Brent Porcio, Stephen Godani here at the @TopVelocity hashtag Pitch and Tip Show, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat @TopVelocity, hashtag Pitch Tips, hashtag Baseball Tips. We're gonna answer your question on the show. If you haven't been to TopVelocity.net, check out our programs, 3X, 2X programs. We got 3X Velocity camps coming up. ABCA Coaches Convention coming up in Nashville. We'll be out there with King of the Hill, having a good time, giving out some free stuff. Come and see us. Let's get started. What's our question for today?
Lucas Klein asks, do you think squatting with the knees pointed slightly outwards would help strengthen the knee and the thigh to support torsion? What exercises would help me get more torsion?
And I've talked about this before. You know, we've got to be deep squatters because when we break the knees, we engage the hams and the quad, so we don't make it too quad dominant, which actually can be bad for the knees over time. You start having knee pain. So just squatting deep is going to help that. I mean, if we're supporting torsion, yeah, I mean, that's really where the concept came from. Good squatting technique is turning the femurs out. It's better not to think knees because you want to bend and then turn them out. Think twisting the femurs like corkscrews, twisting them. The kneecaps will turn on the outside of the knee. Yeah, that's the concept of torsion. And squatting there, it's going to stabilize your legs and you're going to be able to squat more there. And then if you're used to that and you understand how it stabilizes your legs and you feel strong and powerful, you're obviously going to want to do that on the mound as you load on your one leg, as you squat on your one leg on the mound. And also too, because internal rotation is a big part of back leg drives, torsion is an external rotation force. So there, when you go through your drive, it's going to create an internal rotation reaction, which is going to support that. So that's why torsion is a really great approach for a back leg drive or a 3X drive on the pitching mound. And of course, it should be a big emphasis in your squats where you can really understand it and feel how it really supports strength, power, and those movements. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think when you're asking like what exercises will help you get more torsion, I think there really isn't a better one than the squat when you set up for it and really go into it and trying to hold the torsion through it. I think that's awesome for teaching torsion. And I think one of the biggest things like in here when we have guys come in and we're teaching them how to lift at the camps and stuff like that is we teach them the checklist of what Kelly Starrett says to go through before you attempt your squat, but you never really see people buy into that or do it, which is a shame because not only will it be a healthier way for you to squat and prevent injury, but it's also going to help you squat more weight. So I just thought it would be good to like kind of clue people in on what he says. Your mental checklist should be before you go into your squat. When you get there, you should start getting the torsion in your legs, which is like Brent said, like screwing your feet into the ground, start getting the knees almost like pulling outwards.
But don't let your feet go too far.
Yeah, but don't let your feet kick out. Your feet should still be facing forward. Then you squeeze your glutes to pull the pelvis, to tuck the pelvis, like Brent talks about it being like a bucket of water. So if your pelvis is facing down, when you squeeze your glutes, it pulls it in tight. Then you're gonna tighten your core, roll the shoulders back, keep the head in line so the spine gets in a neutral position, and then you break going straight down. And a lot of guys will kick their butt out and stuff. So I think it's just really important to know the steps that you need to have for a good squat, and that's really going to teach torsion. And then another great exercises that we do for torsion on the mound is the torsion drills in level 3.
Yeah, you know, kicking the butt out in a squat is really hard on the back. It's hard to keep the back flat, and then you wind up deadlifting the bar. You don't want to do that. So torsion, or twisting the femurs out as you go down, will actually push the knees out. It give you more room for the femurs to come into the hip socket, and it'll allow you to take the butt straight down to your heels, which will allow you to keep your trunk vertical, and which is safer for your back, and it loads more into your legs, and you create torsion in your lower half, and you feel the strength and stability of your lower half.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, good question. Next question.
Chris Gent 15 asks, I was wondering about movements to the plate, tall and fall, drop and drive, and 3X. Does a specific size or type of pitcher matter for each one? And which do you think would be most effective for me? 5'10", 166 pounds righty.
Hey man, I really appreciate you throwing those old approaches, tall and fall, drop and drive, in with 3X, because when I was coming up with a way to define this approach, I wanted to give it a name that everyone could identify it with, so people would stop saying tall and fall, drop and drive. So I'm glad that you're putting it as another approach, because a lot of people think it's one of those two, and it's not. And that's what I was trying to do with 3X pitching. I wanted it to stand out because it is its own approach. Because when you look at stand tall and fall, which these don't really describe much, but this is what we think when we think of approaches to pitching. You know, you think of lifting, balancing, and then just falling into front foot. Drop and drive, you think of squatting and then jumping out or pushing out the front foot. Really kind of not effective ways of pitching. So I don't even want to consider those, but I understand that's been conventional wisdom for a while. 3X pitching would be like taking those two approaches and combining it. There's an initial fall out of the leg lift, but then there's a peak of forces in a back leg drive or triple extension in the front foot. So it's really the best of both. It's a more effective, more science-based approach of using the kinetic chain, generating force up the chain, and it's a lot more complicated because there's a lot more to it than just stand tall and fall, drop and drive. But obviously I'm going to say 3X pitching is for everybody, but specifically best for little pitchers because it maximizes everything, and that's obviously what the approach was trying to do, was to maximize everything to get maximum ball speed. So it maximizes force off the back leg, which studies show correlation to ball speed or wrist velocities and the torques in the knees and hips to ball velocity. It maximizes front leg force production, which many studies show a link to ball velocity. And then it harnesses and is very built on hip to shoulder separation, which allows us to convert that energy up the chain and into the arm path and make sure we maximize the trunk movements before we maximize the arm movements. So it's something that little pitchers would completely benefit from. I wouldn't see them doing much of anything else unless they're just great athletes like Stroman, who has more of a rotational back leg approach. But it's something perfect for little pitchers because it's going to maximize everything in your body, similar to the deliveries of Tim Lincecum when he threw hard, you know, Sonny Gray, who's another little pitcher.
Kimbrel's kind of little.
Kimbrel, Billy Wagner, you know, and at the same time too, you see someone like Chapman using an approach like 3X pitching. I mean, 3X pitching could define his movement. And I'm saying he uses my approach, but it could define his whole movement pattern. And he's someone who's tall, who maximizes everything, and that's why he's the hardest thrower in the world. So obviously I'm biased to it, but yes, it would highly benefit smaller pitchers better, and I would say better than any other approach out there. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think Brent hit it right on the head with the smaller guys, like using an approach like tall and fall, where they're just not, they're, you know, coming to a balance point and then falling down. They're not going to create enough momentum moving towards the plate and into front foot strike to really create velocities, and then drop and drive. From my understanding of it, when you drop and drive, isn't it just burning the stretch shortening cycle too? Like when you drop into it. So
I just don't know anyone who actually would squat and then drive out. I mean, you can find guys doing it.
Yeah, people would say Kershaw, but like Kershaw's an elite athlete. So
but Kershaw's not even drop and drive. Kershaw's still falling and loading. I'd say he's more 3X. Yeah. I mean, to me, I love to use him as a
down. It looks like awesome 3X.
Yeah, and you see guys that load really deep, you think they're dropping and driving, but they're still moving forward. So like I said, I don't really see drop and drive, stand tall and fall, maybe more stand tall and fall, but not drop and drive really define much. There's not many guys that just squat and then try to drive. Yeah. It just doesn't work that way, you know?
Yeah, but the 3X approach to it for little guys who just genetically don't have the velocity, I think it's really the best approach that you could try to get into to get the velocity, but it is the most difficult, especially for smaller guys, ask you know, Austin Easter, who's had success with it, and God, I'm blanking on my boy. Who's the other small guy you would say I was in that? Explosive you have to be, how you have to really nail down the movements to get the velocity out of it. And it's a really hard approach, but I think it is the most effective approach if someone was to take that road.
All right, good question. If you have a question, go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, at TopVelocity, hashtag pitch tips, hashtag baseball tips. Ask your question and answer on the show. Please go to TopVelocity.net, check out our 3X, 2X programs, check out our camps, subscribe, like us on all of our social networks, and we'll keep this going for you, and we'll see you on the next episode.